I came to the US the first time in the 90s, and I was going to rent an RV, and I was trying to explain to the guy at the RV shop the car that I had in Europe. I lived in Europe at the time. I had something called a Fiat Punto. You have cars like that now in the US, but at the time in the 90s you didn't. Like it was, it's like a small mini car, like it's very, very small.
Yeah,
that was our family car, 4 doors, 2 kids, that was the family car.
Okay.
And I was trying to explain to him, that is the excited car. And he was like thinking hard, he go, you mean a Volkswagen Jetta? I go, no, smaller. He says, there are no smaller cars. But you know, you're trying to explain to people something that they can't even imagine.
My name is Madeline Castillo, and I'm the CMO here at Tulip, and this is our video series, Humans in the Loop, where I speak with the folks behind the product. And I have a couple of colleagues here with me today. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Gilad Langer. I lead our industry practice here at Tulip.
And hi, I'm Geoff Winkley, Solution Delivery Lead.
All right, so I'm talking about data models, UNS, unstructured versus structured data, contextual data. Help me roadmap my way through here when it comes to generative AI and how those things fit together.
Yeah,
they all apply.
Yeah.
Let's just compare it to the old, right? So in the old thinking of systems, I'm talking 90s plus, contextualization was very, very important, a lot of driven, but that contextualizations in the technologies at the time required really to create models. And we have very strict, rigid models, and we have standards for them, and how to apply. And you needed experts to create them, to put the data into them, to read the data out, not democratize, right? The technology as it's evolving has a very different different requirement, I would say, for what is contextual data. Yes, you need to have context around data because you don't know what it is. That is the DIKW pyramid, if you know what that is: data, information, knowledge, wisdom.
Okay.
Right?
Love it.
How you elevate data to wisdom.
Yes.
The new technology in a simplified form basically makes that DIKW, it collapses it, makes it much more easier to get from data to wisdom with these new technologies.
It's a great framing.
So that I think is what's driving it. And the old school people from the old systems, they shrug and go, oh, we need this very rigid model. I go, no, you actually don't need it. Hence the confusion. I mean, all this stuff is kind of deep into how things work, and it just creates confusion and a lot of just misunderstanding. You're trying to, I tell our salespeople, like, you're trying to sell a rocket ship, and the only thing that they can imagine is a bicycle. Another little anecdote from life, right? So I came to the US the first time in the 90s, and I was going to rent an RV, and I was trying to explain to the guy at the RV shop the car that I had in Europe. I lived in Europe at the time. I had something called a Fiat Punto. You have cars like that now in the US, but at the time in the 90s you didn't. Like it was, it's like a small mini car, like it's very, very small.
Yeah,
that was our family car, 4 doors, 2 kids, that was the family car.
Okay.
And I was trying to explain to him, that is the excited car. And he was like thinking hard, he go, oh, you mean a Volkswagen Jetta? I go, no, smaller. He says, there are no smaller cars. But you're trying to explain to people something that they can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And that is, at the root of kind of the problem with agents and what we do in Tulip, right?
Yeah, and going back to the point just on data models and contextualization and how it all gets structured, I think if you really step back and look at the manufacturing environment, there is so much data that is in human language, right? I mean, practical examples, from my experience, work instructions, steps that a manufacturing or a process engineer will write in order to accomplish the specific process or operation, like inspection plans. Yes, it may call out like a characteristic, which is a numeric value with a tolerance range, but there's probably some human instructions, written along with that. Anytime you have any sort of deviation, comment, defect, non-conformance, I don't know, any business that doesn't apply some amount of human language overlay on top of that. You may have, sure, standard lists of like defect codes, but there is generally a person that is going to both describe what that event was and also probably in human language put together like a corrective action, a comment, or a disposition on top of that. So I think from kind of every corner in the manufacturing environment, because the complex system of systems that exists, the intermediary point between them is often human language. And I think if you actually kind of like open your eyes and view it in that way, you'll start to see how these tools are going to address this problem that you're describing of like data structure, data organization, and actually pulling together from various data sources to make meaning of it.
Yeah. I'll just bring an example. Like this is something I played with this morning. You know, one of the big problems in systems and in the old generation of systems was called master data management. So you have multiple systems with these rigid models that give different names and different contexts to different types to the same data set. Like, you know, a SKU is in one system, an item is in another system, means the same thing. A part number, same thing, right?
Great example.
So, you know, and you had to have systems to have a dictionary to say, okay, that and that and that is actually the same thing.
Yeah.
Those systems cost millions of dollars, and you had to have people manage these systems.
Sure.
A high salary job, the data dictionary person.
I was playing around with one of our agents today in our tool, and I asked, you know, which work order is delayed. And it's like, these are the work orders that are delayed. I'm talking about an agent. I'm talking to an agent at this point.
Yeah.
I said, well, this order, 201, can you set it to hold, or just let's not produce it?
Yeah.
You know, and it found out what the right status was for that order based on the other statuses, and actually told me that some of the other orders have inconsistent naming for statuses, right? And, you know, so think about master data management, millions of dollars being spent on managing all of that.
Yeah.
And completely it's eradicated. You do not need to do that anymore. And that's to your point about data. I don't need to do that. I can go into my data set and like look at your ERP and look at your PLM and look at your shop production and tell me where my parts are. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't need to know that one is a SKU and one is called an item and the other one's called a part number. It actually knows how to do that. Like a human being, right? That's where productivity comes in. And people don't understand productivity in manufacturing that's a waste. If you think, you know, in lean terms, the need to have to do that between systems and spend data and modeling the systems, from a lean perspective, that's waste.
Yeah.
It is.
It's really interesting you bring that up, because I think we're so conditioned, especially if you've been like educated on this whole idea of lean manufacturing, you're almost always thinking about like the pure production side of things, right? How do I get like the materials to the right spot? How do I remove those last 10 minutes of cycle time out of that product? But there's this whole support structure in operations, from, you know, the engineering team working in the PLM system, to design things, from engineering changes and how they flow down into production and work instruction changes. And one of the interesting, like, you know, use cases or things that has come to my mind recently, you know, from previous experience, working in aerospace, change control is everything, right? You are constantly making changes to design, to improve things, often for reasons of, you know, quality. And to take a, you know, engineering change order from your PLM system and actually try to figure out where are all the dependencies of where that change from 2.36 inches to 2.38 inches, you know, on that one dimension, where is the product going to be affected by that change? And having a tool that could actually look at what that change was, maybe with an identifier of a blueprint sheet zone location, and actually find the work instruction and the actual, you know, text that described what a person needed to do to make that product, and maybe not necessarily automatically make that change, but guide that manufacturing process quality engineer to make that change. I mean, that could be potentially hours of work kind of on the support side, right? And in the, you know, content generation side, the impact there could be huge.
Yeah. I try to explain it to manufacturers and say, you know, you have, you know, if you want to use an agent, right? Think about it as you're hiring an intern and he's coming to work the first day, right? You need to tell him what to do. So just do some do some prep work, you know, and say, okay. And essentially that's how you work with agents. But now you can hire not one intern, but actually 10 interns or even more at zero cost, without the human aspect of it as well. And you just like, look, this is what you need to do. You give it to them and they go through the system. So it doesn't mean like you shouldn't be scared about it, but at the same time, you need to manage your interns.
Yeah.
You need to manage the people that are working for you, and that's what you essentially do. So if you take that perspective on it, you know, it becomes easier to accept. Okay? Because why? Because we're in control, right? We need to feel we're in
for
control.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like go science fiction on me right now.
No, I mean, it is
Yeah.
it's a real question on like where you want to allow, these systems and then the governance and control of it, which I think most, I know I can speak for Tulip specifically, like we're thinking very,
Right.
very deeply about like where the autonomy lives and what sort of approvals are there in these agents and their ability to actually act, with some sort of approval.
Right.